Hello everyone, I'm coming at you. I got my Demon in White cover photo, I got a haircut, and I'm coming at you with a comparison between books that I want to be completely upfront with has absolutely no literary merit. This isn't me being like, I'm going to compare the literary merit of these series. This is me having seen verses not just for books but for things in general of the past, and just kind of like being annoyed by the format and just being like, I could do a better format, and then sporadically doing one if I have a couple series that I think are like kind of similar. And this time we have two trilogies that I actually think the fandoms have a lot of overlap for, so maybe that'll lead to less violence in the comments, although maybe the violence in the comments is good, and for the next one I should pick like series that I like a similar amount, but like all the fans like argue with. But anyways, there'll be some violence in the comments. We have the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee and The Broken Earth by N.K. Jemisin. So, for those of you who don't know, my not lame format involves 25 total points across the categories of action, prose, theme, world building, plot, and character, and it is not 5 points each. They are weighted based on how important I think they are. So if you want to do your own verses in the comments, you can not only change where the points go, you can change how they're weighted if you so choose. If you're like, well, I think theme should be more important, or something like that, you can go ahead. And also, it is not winner take all, because being a little bit better than something is not the same as being way better. So the first category is action. And action, which is worth a mighty 1 point, is going to go pretty clearly to the Greenbone Saga. I've faked you out with holding the book. This one wasn't that hard. Broken Earth action, like the main character, and most of the main characters are kind of pretty powerfully magic. Origine is like very powerful, and they're typically like, whenever they fight each other, just like one of them dies right away, because it's a lot more overpowered, while this is kind of, literally the magic system is based on Fonda Lee just like seeing unrealistic kung fu in movies, and was like, what if we could have that, but with internal consistency? Because who doesn't like internal consistency? I know I certainly like internal consistency. These are not necessarily my favorite action scenes ever. They are not necessarily what I would consider close to the strength of the series. But Greenbone Saga is going to pretty comfortably take the 1-0 lead after this category. And next, all three of the next categories are worth 3 points, but if one of them is the least important, maybe, it's probably world building / setting, which the setting of the Greenbone Saga is quite cool. It is a like secondary world urban fantasy that's based on Earth, where you have like this one city that's really just a city-state, but they have like a monopoly on jade, which like lets them do cool magic things and also kills people who aren't biologically capable of doing cool magic things. But for world building, it's pretty clearly gonna go to Broken Earth. The world building, lore, and everything for Broken Earth is pretty insane. I guess magic system would count in here for world building, and the Greenbone magic system is cool, but Broken Earth magic system is just really detailed, really in-depth, and really fits the world and is used extremely well. They're both used extremely well. Like, they're both magic systems where it's like, if you were to try and like swap them out for some other magic system, it's not like it would work because of how well like intertwined they are with the series. But there's just there's a lot of, I mean, the premise of like a version of Earth with like, you know, somewhat sporadic but still regular enough for it to be a thing, like near apocalyptic seismic events, and like the way it shapes society was just so interesting. And there's such really, really cool lore with like the Stone Eaters. So I do like Greenbone setting, but I mean, this is really, the decision is whether I'm going 2-1 for Broken Earth or 3-0. And in all honesty, like, I would say for good trilogies, like like, the world building is good. Well, I think for trilogies, I mean, the only trilogy I'm confident has better world building than Broken Earth is if you count The Lord of the Rings as a trilogy, which I don't. So it might be for trilogies like the one power, or at least in contention for like the best trilogy I've read in terms of world building. So I am actually gonna go ahead and go 3 points to 0 for world building in favor of the Broken Earth trilogy, giving it a 3-1 lead. Alright. The next 3-point category is going to be theme. And I think, again, this one it'd be pretty hard to not give it to Broken Earth. Theme is kind of one of the main points of Broken Earth. It does explore a huge amount of topics in quite a bit of detail. I still think Greenbone is, especially Jade Legacy, is quite thematically rich in terms of, like, legacy and, like, the duties to family. And it does explore its topics very well. But I like, it'd be hard to... So I am going to give Jade City a point and get it to 2. But I think kinda theme is one of the main appeals to Broken Earth. And again, it would be very difficult to not give theme to Broken Earth. I will say one thing for theme is that, like... no, that's more for character. We're going to shelve what I was about to say. But yeah, Broken Earth, I mean, it's very much... Like, the story is still first, but the story was definitely written primarily with the theme in mind, while this was primarily the story in mind. So it'd be very hard, which means we are going to end up with a score of 5 for the Broken Earth and 2 for the Greenbone Saga. And the final 3-point category is prose. And they're very different, again, in terms of prose. Greenbone is, I would say, like, on the scale of, like, straightforward to lyrical, like, where the prose is, like, how the sentences are put together is supposed to be the point. It's, like, middle, slightly closer to straightforward. But I think Greenbone is just an excellent example of, like, really well done straightforward prose, where I can't remember, like, coming up to a sentence and being like, oh, this was kind of awkwardly phrased. I also very rarely, like, remember being like, wow, this was, like, beautifully phrased. I think Greenbone, like, the prose is just probably not going to get in the way of your enjoyment, nor will it elevate the books. And I could see, like, if you don't like the Broken Earth trilogy, one of the reasons could absolutely be the prose, because it's much more distinct. N.K. Jemisin has a very distinct authorial voice. One of the most distinct authorial voices I've found. I wouldn't say I found her writing beautiful, but I definitely think, I mean, it was distinctive, and it had just, like, a wit to it. And a charm to it that I think is hard to discount. This is one where, like, I could see if you bounced off Broken Earth, one of the reasons might be because you didn't like the writing style. Well, I think it would be kind of surprising to bounce off Jade City for, like, not liking the writing style, unless you're someone who, like, only likes reading books with, like, really lyrical prose, in which case you shouldn't have been reading this in the first place. But I really enjoyed the writing voice for this. But because Greenbone writing is good, I am going to go another 2 points to Broken Earth and 1 point to the Greenbone Saga. So the slight underdog is running with a pretty good lead, but we'll see how keep in mind, we have actually haven't even given out half the points. I've given out 10 points. Which the next 2 categories, which is plot and characters, which for obvious reasons I think are the 2 most important for my enjoyment of the of a book. So there's plenty of room left. A 7-3 lead is very far from insurmountable. Okay, and we have plot, and 2 books in to the Broken Earth trilogy, I probably could have seen myself going either way here. Unfortunately, I do have an issue with the plotting of the Stone Sky that I think is pretty major. And that is that there is, like, a countdown element in the Stone Sky. but it's not like they had to get a certain amount of stuff done and then the countdown. It's just like when the countdown happens, then the important stuff is going to happen. And until now, side quests, which really just made me not care about a lot of the stuff for like half a book, which is pretty significant. And it would be something that I think, like, something that could have been changed to, like, actually give me, like, to connect the main plot to what was going on, and it just wasn't. And it also doesn't help that, like, Greenbone is really well plotted. These are definitely not, like, thriller paced. They're somewhat methodically paced. I would say they're not fast or they're not slow. They're very much, like, medium pacing. And I think in general, the plotting of Greenbone is just pretty excellent. Like, the sources of conflict are interesting. I will say, in terms of, like, the start of the 5th season, like, the inciting incidents were more interesting, but I then thought after, like, the story is introduced, the execution of the plot and as it develops and complicates and moves on was just more consistently engaging to me in Greenbone. And it probably 2 books into Broken Earth, I would have given plotting to Greenbone 3-2, but instead I am going to go 4 points to Greenbone and 1 to the 5th to Broken Earth, which is going to get, it's going to almost even the score. That's going to make it 8-7? Yeah, it's going to make it 8-7 for the Broken Earth, going into, by far, the most important category, as many points as the first 4 combined, which is characters, which is worth 10 points. So this is where I would love to claim that this is going to be a buzzer beater, and like, oh, I really could see a point for both. Obviously, Greenbone needs 6 points to Broken Earth 4 to catch up. And let's just put it this way. If I made a top 5 character list from both these series, maybe a Broken Earth character could get in there. Maybe. But that's actually where Broken Earth is closer, at the top end. Like, my favorite characters in both series. There are like 4 characters I care about in the Broken Earth series, and I think they're good characters. But then after that, it drops off fast. So if I were to make a top 20 character list from both series, it would probably have 25 characters from the Greenbone saga, and then it would have like 5 characters from Broken Earth, and it's not like it would dominate the top end, because the top 1 is definitely a Greenbone character, and probably the entire top 4 is a Greenbone character, and then like 1 Broken Earth character can sneak in. So this is really... and also the thing I was going to mention, there also is, even for the main character, there was something that came up in the 3rd book, which is the one I'm the most critical of. I think I have non-trivial complaints about the 3rd book that are actually like about how well what the author was trying to do was executed. And there is a thing for one of the main characters where there's, without spoiling it, something happens to them that I would say it is reasonable to say should have a major impact on anyone's life, and they then basically think about it 5 times, and it's usually as a trivial throw-off. So I'm going to... And also, on the other hand, instead of just punching down, I'm going to say that Greenbone is one of the best series I've ever read in terms of characterization. I can tell you what the best series I've read in terms of characterization is. It's obviously Realm of the Elderlings, or my favorite. And then after that, there's like a good 8 series that on any given day, if you ask me, well, who's your second favorite? Like, what series would be second favorite in terms of characters? Like, there's 8 series that would be in like a revolving door, and it just depends what mood you catch me in. Greenbone Saga is one of those. I think the characters are both extremely entertaining and vivid, and their development is handled exceedingly well, where every single one of them both has core aspects of who they are that make them feel like a consistent person and character, while they also develop in a way that is totally, like, believable. Like, they're not just changing overnight. No core aspect of their character is forgotten. And also, they just clearly have different priorities, and like how they see the world is really well done. Fonda Lee is one of the people who for dialogue here, because I don't have dialogue as its own category. I considered having dialogue as its own category because of like how important it is to how good I think a book is, but I just decided it's part of prose and it's part of character. Fonda Lee's very good at like considering how people see others when she writes dialogue, where it's like, even if you blanked out the name, like for the dialogue test, I think not only could you say who the person was, you maybe couldn't say exactly who you were talking to, but you could determine, like, you know, if you saw the conversation with the names blanked out, you could figure out, like, you know, things about the relationship, even if it was unrelated. So, like, you know, people based on, like, their relative authority level and cultural biases will talk differently to different people, and it's extremely well done. So I'm going to be a little bit harsh here, but I think it's, I'm being a little bit harsh, not because I'm being harsh, but because Greenbone, for characterization, I think is truly excellent, and I am going to give the Greenbone saga 9 points for characterization, and I am going to give the Broken Earth trilogy 1, which is pretty harsh. Broken Earth would probably do fine against a lot of trilogies. I really, like, when I realized in the third book how little I cared about anyone past the main 5 characters, I was kind of like, eh. Especially because, like, if I could have just read the 5th season, like, this would be really close, because, like, all the really, like, the people who I think are, like, really interesting and dynamic and well done are, like, most of the cast of the first book, and then they're, like, a decent part of the cast of the second book, and then a part of the cast of the third book, which is why I like each book less. So, that gives us a final score. Despite starting with a lead, the Broken Earth trilogy ends up with 10 points to the Greenbone saga's 15, which was maybe a little harsh of characters. Maybe I could have gone 8 too, but it really, I just don't think it's that close. As I think, if you know, the fact that if I made a top 25 character list, that like 20 of them would be from the Greenbone saga. I don't mean in general. I mean if I made a top character list just between these two series. Yeah, it's hard for me to give it more than 1 point. So, that concludes the verses. I think these books actually have a pretty large overlap in the fandom. Like, if I think to myself, who are most of the biggest... Actually, I think more the other way. If I think to myself, who are the biggest 5th season, or, like, Broken Earth fans who I personally know, most of them also really like the Greenbone saga. And that's kind of true in reverse. I'm trying to think if I know anyone who's, like, read both and really likes one and really dislikes the other. And I'm sure they exist. Has Evie read? No, I don't think Evie's tried Greenbone. Yeah, I got nothing. So maybe that'll lead to less violence in the comments. We'll see. But feel free to tell me why I'm wrong. Feel free to give me how you would do your verses. You can weight the points how I did, or you can create your own. If it adds up to 25, you can weight it however you see fit. If you think theme is the most important, or prose is the most important, or setting is the most important, or character is the most important, but just by less, or character actually should be weighted even higher, however you want to do it. I'm interested to see how you would see it below. For those of you who have only read Greenbone and really like it, you're welcome. I'm just confirming your biases. And for those of you who have only read Broken Earth and have not read Greenbone, you have to read Greenbone before you comment angrily. That's just how it works. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section. If you've got any recommendations for verses, I'll look at it and then maybe just ignore it because I do these super sporadically and I will have forgotten about it. So I won't really ignore it. I'll look at it and be like, oh, that would be good. And then I will have forgotten about it in 7 months when I do another of these. Bye, everyone.